So it should be live. Yeah, it's live now. So if you can just do a quick introduction.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Alix Murphy. I am Senior Mobile Analyst at WorldRemit. My role here, well, first of all, WorldRemit is an international remittance company. We are a service that allows people living in the developed world, mostly developed economies, to send money back home if they're to their friends and family in the developing world. So mostly our customers are people living and working abroad and who are supporting family members back in the developing world. We're available in more than 50 countries, and we enable money transfers and airtime remittances to over 120 countries worldwide. My background, though, I actually come from the telecom sector. I worked for about 3 years with the GSMA, which is the Global Telecommunications Industry Association. They represent the mobile carriers, mobile telecoms operators of the world. And I worked on a new, well, relatively new at the time, industry called mobile money, which are, I'll get into that a little bit more in the payments throughout my presentation, but they are mobile payment services for primarily for underbanked customers. Prior to, and to put a little bit more context around that, what I was doing is looking at a lot of the data and the transaction volumes and things like customer growth for these mobile telecoms operators and how they could improve their services to increase the penetration of these mobile financial services for the unbanked. Prior to that, I worked for a while in various international development organizations, mostly doing livelihoods development programs and supporting grants and initiatives throughout sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia for, again, economic and social development. And I'm very excited to be here at WorldRemit and with you guys today. So Bertrand, let me know when you are ready.
Yeah, I think we can jump. I think we can jump into the presentation.
Okay, fantastic. So I will, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, everything is fine, yes. And we should have some people joining soon. So yeah, you can just start, I think.
Okay, so I think as I mentioned, for us, mobile money is a hugely important part of our own story at WorldRemit. We're really excited to be here today because it's a subject that is actually very relevant to a lot of our own customer base. These are people, as I mentioned, who are in the diaspora. They're living and working abroad, and they're interested to know what's going on back home, back in their home countries, and particularly a lot of them are in sub-Saharan Africa. That's a huge market for us, and increasingly West Africa is an important customer base. So a lot of our customers actually have their own business ideas that they want to start, or they have already started back home, or they want to invest back home in their home country. And so actually a lot of what I'm going to talk to you today is based on something that we do quite often, which is when we go to these markets where our customers are sending money to, we go and talk to, we try to understand what's going on in there, especially in the startup scene, what's happening in terms of the mobile payment sector, especially because for us, as we link up with these mobile money services, so that an individual, let's say you're a Cameroonian living in London and you want to send money back home, you'll be able to send money into your friend's or your mother's mobile money account directly. So this is a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is from a recent trip to Ghana, where we were talking to some of the startups there and their interest in mobile money. But to give you a little bit more context about why this is such an important subject and why it's a really interesting sort of growing trend, we need to we need to sort of put the whole thing into context. So, you know, when we talk about, particularly when we talk about startups scene or starting any type of new business, solving the payments challenge, solving that challenge of moving money around from one entity to another, whether it's from a business to a business, or moving money along the supply chain, getting your supplies, or whether it's actually the consumer paying for whatever service they are using. That functionality is incredibly challenging in a lot of markets, and partly that's because we're talking about a lot of roads, we're talking about distances, we're talking about moving money. As I say, it's cash based. A lot of these economies are very much person to person. You're transacting with cash from one individual to another, and that means that you are actually literally holding a lot of cash in hand. Now, the banking sector, particularly, this is small and medium scale businesses who are making large scale transactions. As I say, they're moving, goods around the country. They're making, relatively large scale transactions. The banking sector actually does serve to a certain degree some of these transactions, but with just 20 to 30% banking penetration, we're actually at a point where that's not the main way that people make payments and that people actually move money around, even businesses. We're really talking about sending your employee off to the rural market where they have to go collect the goods. What if they don't have enough cash? That's really challenging to find the nearest ATM. It's not about that. It's really about carrying a bundle of cash, and you have to travel very long distances in order to obtain that money. So at the same time, however, what we are also seeing, and West Africa is a big part of this story, is a huge rise in mobile penetration. Sub-Saharan Africa, it is growing at a rapid pace. By 2020, nearly half the population on the continent will have a mobile connection, and West Africa is playing a particularly huge, large role in that growth of mobile penetration. So Nigeria, for example, is the 5th fastest growing market in the world for mobile connections. And by 2020, the West Africa region is expected to have over 540 million smartphones. Now, that said, actually, a lot of this communications technology is really going to remain very low grade. We're talking about 2G technology. Currently, 2G makes up the majority of all connections in the region, in the West Africa region, and that's even by 2020, that's still going. 3G is going to make up around 40% of transactions. So even though we see some really exciting 4G and LTE initiatives, in countries like Ghana, Accra has some LTE and 4G connectivity. Nigeria, other countries, it's still going to be very much in the urban areas. So that said, how do we actually solve this? We have huge growth of technology, of communications technologies. This is how business is being run these days. People are communicating across distances, and yet moving money around is very challenging. So, of course, in steps mobile money. Now, if you're familiar with mobile money, you've probably heard of M-Pesa in Kenya. That's the most famous service. That is, mobile money is, however, not just in Kenya. It is not just in East Africa. There are over 270 mobile money services, just like M-Pesa. These are relatively low grade, basic prepaid transactional accounts that are linked to a mobile phone number, linked to your mobile number, so it's based on your SIM card, and you don't have to have a smartphone to use it. You don't have to have a bank account, as an underlying payment system. You top up the prepaid account with your with cash, at an agent location, and then make payments from that account. So it's a financial service that is run not by banks or by any other kind of microfinance institutions or other financial services institutions. It's run by telecoms operators in the vast majority of cases, or third-party institutions. And the thing to remember about mobile money is that it is primarily a P2P offering. So it is about sending money from one person to another. You do have a lot of growth now in other areas, and I'll go into those a little bit more detail, such as direct in-store merchant payments. You have things like bill payments for electricity bills, for things like school fees, and a whole range of other services. But at the moment, peer-to-peer transactions make up probably the vast majority of any kind of person-to-person transactions or person-to-business transactions. So, and that's going to, you'll see the importance of that later on. So what's interesting about this, though, is actually West Africa is one of the fastest growing regions for mobile money. Oh, and sorry, before I get to that, globally we've seen huge growth in the last couple of years. So in 2012, there were 30 million active users of mobile money. By 2 years later, by 2014, we had 103 million active users of mobile money globally. And by the latest figures, which is December of 2015, that number is about 134 million active users of mobile money around the world. Now, West Africa has seen in the last year or so, year to 2 years, phenomenal growth, and where you actually see some of the largest growth areas are things like the number of agent locations where people can cash in and cash out. That's seen 2 times the amount of growth that is going on in other countries. West Africa is actually one of the fastest growing regions for peer-to-peer transactions, and mobile money now is linked to nearly 20% of all connections in the West Africa region, which is a really exciting story, because if you go, even if you were in a place like Ghana a couple of years ago, as I was, then you wouldn't have seen mobile money anywhere at the scale that you see it today. It is truly very, very, very widespread across the country. And that's not the case in all countries. We have to be aware of that. So Nigeria is a country, for example, where mobile money hasn't yet taken off, and there are reasons for that. But we're seeing some really exciting initiatives now where governments are recognizing the importance of mobile money. So, for example, in Côte d'Ivoire, an initiative last year that was a government-led public-private partnership initiative among and a cooperative initiative among the telecoms operators and the school board to enable all secondary school educational registrations to be paid via digital forms, and specifically via mobile money. So 99% of the 1.7 million secondary school children had their school fees paid via some kind of digital form, so whether it was online or mobile money, but actually 94% of those were via mobile money, which is a phenomenal achievement for Côte d'Ivoire and for the sector, as it shows this incredible recognition that mobile money is a viable method of payment. It's an important method of payment. Now, where are we in terms of how startups are actually using this? I'd say startups at this current stage are a little, they've been a little hesitant to use mobile money up until now, and that's primarily because as the sector has been growing, it has taken a lot of initiative and a lot of effort on the part of the telcos to really grow customer awareness. But what you start to see at this point is some really exciting things. So we have companies like Loystar, which is a loyalty program. They're a startup that was initiated. They actually came out of Mest, if you're familiar with Mest, as a startup hub in Ghana, where they work with small merchants. This is the team, we met them in Accra a couple of weeks ago. They work with small merchants and to enable their loyalty schemes with customers. Now, how the merchant can provide any kinds of loyalty schemes, and whether it's text-based or in store, however many by however many transactions you make or however many purchases. But one of the ways that merchants can pay for this subscription-based service is via mobile money. So you can see here, this is how do you get your customers to keep coming back. Loystar works with you to actually enable those loyalty schemes, and the ease for the business in paying for those customers, paying for their subscription service is via mobile money. You also have, we saw this increasingly in a lot of places, a company called SlidePay. They are both a customer and business-facing service. They provide a platform and POS systems for direct merchant payments, both online and in store. And so customers can, and they offer multiple ways for customers to pay for their goods and services. So again, if you're in a merchant store or online, you could pay with different payments cards, credit card or debit card, or you can input a code into the system, or you can pay by mobile money. And you can see there's Airtel Money and MTN and Tigo Cash there, alongside all of the payments options. You can also use mobile money services to input or to load your SlidePay account to enable payments from that. So this is really sort of the burgeoning. What we're seeing is the start of mobile money being a platform for other services to build on, or the payment rails for other services to build their functionality on top of. And SlidePay also provides a kind of merchant cash flow management tool, which is pretty cool. Another service which is very interesting, and this is Felix. He's the technical lead for a company called Zigloy, or formerly, if you've heard of Gkudi. They're a software program, and they provide a platform to microfinance lenders. So for small-scale businesses, again, particularly in semi-urban or rural areas. They provide us a small working loan and use mobile money in numerous parts of their business. So the first is for the customers to repay their loans directly as a repayment tool, because of course the other alternative would be to have to go all the way to one of the Zigloy agent locations, or their company locations, or to wait for the agent to come around and collect the loan. The agents themselves, so the Zigloy agents, when they're out in the field and they're either issuing loans or collecting loans from the customers, they also use mobile money to manage their own liquidity. So again, if they suddenly find themselves a little short of the cash that's out there that they're using, they can just send a message to head office, and head office provides some more liquidity into their account. Or vice versa, if they've collected a lot of cash, they can just go to a local mobile money agent and cash in to their account. And those agents are geolocated as well, which is interesting. It provides a whole range of data services that you can monitor, or database, monitoring services that enable Zigloy to have a better understanding, or the microfinance institution to have a better understanding the service. And then finally, we have a company called ExpressPay, which is they are actually building a payments ecosystem. So they are similar to these other services in the sense that, you know, they've recognized that mobile money is one of many ways to actually pay for goods and services, such as your TV bills or electricity bills or water bills. But that's aggregated into their platform, and they're kind of in a way acting as a hub for all of these different services to accept payments via different means, but in particular mobile money is one of those. And they've just received some funding, which is very exciting, from the Gates Foundation's Grand Challenges initiative, which, you know, really shows just how exciting this kind of service is, again, where mobile money is being looked at as a platform, you know, very early stage to provide those payment services. So those are just a couple of examples, and I hope I've provided a little bit of background as well to understanding, you know, where mobile money is in West Africa today, and I await some questions if there are any.
Yes, so let me just pull out my screen now so people can actually ask the questions, and then I'm gonna start with my questions.
Okay.
Yeah, just 1 second. Right, so those of you that are watching from the group,
now I can't see any screen for questions, so if you're going to have to read them out to me, Bertrams. Sorry, could you repeat that?
So are there any regulations, like how is it regulated across Africa?
For the regulations for the mobile money sector? Is that the question? Yes, so it does depend on the country, very much so. Typically, or I won't even say typically, what you'll find is a range of different regulations. Mobile money is a regulated sector. In some countries, it falls under the telecoms sector regulations, so it's regulated as a telecommunications service. Mostly that's in countries where it hasn't grown quite to the scale where it is recognized as a financial service by the financial services regulator. In other countries, you have the financial services regulator or the central bank overlooking everything from consumer protections around the actual processes and the should I say, the protection of consumer funds, and all the way to things like competition issues, whether the entities providing mobile money services, whether it's telcos or other third parties or even banks, are doing so in a fair and competitive manner. So when you, let's say from a customer perspective, when you have your money in your mobile money account, what is actually happening is that money, it's sitting in a pooled bank account, which is protected by the bank itself, and the mobile money provider don't have access to those funds, so they're not even intermediated as funds. They're actually pooled and protected. So when you are making your transactions, they're held in the financial services sector.
And then how does this differ between the African nations? Is it similar across Africa, or are there major differences in specific regions?
So it does very much depend on the different countries. So that's why I mentioned, for example, Nigeria has a very different set of regulations to Ghana. Ghana has different regulations to the ECOWAS region, which sit under the BCAO central financial services regulator. And so yeah, they're I think in a lot of the principles, they don't differ very much, but there are some details that are quite different. So, for example, in Ghana, the regulator actually just issued a new set of regulations that explores different ways that the telecommunications operators can actually provide new types of services. So, one example would be they're now exploring the option of allowing interest payments to be paid back to the customer on the funds that they hold in their mobile money accounts. There's only one other country in the world where that is possible, and that's Tanzania. And that was very exciting when that launched in 2014. So yeah, Ghana is exploring that. So and there are other similar initiatives in other countries.
And then we have a question from Adeposi. So in regards to the security risks for the mobile money agents, since they collect the funds from users, how do they manage the risks?
Yeah, so in terms of, okay, a mobile money agent is going to be an employee or either an employee or someone who's undergone training by the telecoms operator to manage that process. So they your funds, and of course, they have an agent account. So whenever there's transactions going through their account, that's monitored by the mobile money provider. They can tell. It's quite hard for an agent to falsify transactions. So in terms of security of the agent's account, they have a certain amount of cash that they have to have on them throughout the day, because they're managing that cash in and cash out process. And on the other side, above them, then there's a master agent, which then they can deposit their funds at the end of the day. So all of that money is and that money as well, if you've got a balance on your account, if you can imagine that the agent has a balance on his account, that is literally held in the correspondent banking account.
And so, yeah, go on.
No, so I was just saying that there are procedures in place. There are again regulations in place, and there are the processes in place for ensuring that the transactions and the handling of cash are done so in a professional and safe manner.
And then you mentioned that Nigeria hasn't really picked up in terms of the mobile payments. What have been the reasons for this?
It's sort of a longer story, but for a long time, mobile money has been viewed as sort of, well, let's say, there's been a lot of initiative from the perspective of the government to provide literal banking services to low-income and unbanked customers, and whereby the banks were viewed as the primary initiator of these small-scale financial services for unbanked customers, and to that degree, the regulation around the mobile money services has been a little bit restrictive to the operations of the if you think about the entire process from end to end, the telecoms operators have a limited role to play. So there's been less incentive on either part to actually invest in these services and build them up to scale. That's changing now as the regulators have a better understanding of the different roles of all the players. So we should be seeing some interesting things coming out of Nigeria. Already we're seeing some interesting services that are third-party services that are providing similar services to mobile money.
What other countries do you think are going to pick up soon in Africa?
In where in West Africa?
Yeah, so what other countries will pick up in their sort of mobile payment ecosystems? So Nigeria is one that hasn't sort of developed and it's going to develop soon in this area. So any other countries?
So I mentioned Côte d'Ivoire as an example of a country where the government has really recognized the exciting role that mobile money can play in terms of creating or driving efficiencies in the school enrollment sector. Now that's one tiny portion of all of the different payments that even the government can take. Other governments are looking at things like tax collection. You have initiatives where government sector employees are having their salaries paid via mobile money. That's again, Côte d'Ivoire is pretty advanced in a lot of those areas. We also see mobile money taking off, and we're excited about Cameroon. For us as a remittance provider, Côte d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Senegal are all really exciting markets. Another area that's particularly interesting for these services, and I didn't mention it here because I didn't want to run over the time, is actually in West Africa particularly. There's been very large growth, and it's actually the leading region for this, for cross-border remittances provided via mobile money companies. So an entity like MTN, telecommunications company like MTN, has partnered with Etisalat's Move service to provide cross-border transactions, cross-border remittance services, basically P2P money transfers, between, for example, Togo and Benin, or again, Côte d'Ivoire and Togo, for example. And there are about 19 or so corridors so far where these cross-border, intra-regional partnerships have taken place. And are serving these. Again, this is really important for businesses that are very often moving across borders within a region to be able to send money abroad across. And particularly it's worked very well in the BCL region of West Africa because of the single currency. But you even see some partnerships where they're handling the currency conversion as well.
And then in terms of WorldRemit, what have been the biggest challenges in accessing that market?
For us, there really haven't been a huge amount of challenges in accessing the market, because there is such there's such demand for remittances, or there's demand for incoming remittances from abroad, and particularly when you think that the average P2P transaction domestically, when someone's sending money back and forth, is about $30 or so. And very often it's less than that. People are making small scale transactions, $1, $2, $5, whereas the average international remittance transfer is probably going to be a lot more closer to, and for us especially, we're seeing transaction sizes of about $200, $250, sometimes $100. And that, when you are able to, from the perspective of the mobile telecoms operator, when you are bringing in transactions of that size and you're bringing money directly into the mobile money accounts, there's a much greater incentive for customers to keep the money in their account and use it for a secondary transaction, such as paying a bill, or again a school fee, or sending it on, using it in their business and sending it on to another person. That's where you can really start to see mobile money grow as an ecosystem as people use it more and more.
And then one last question. So for sort of the early stage entrepreneurs, are there any opportunities for them in this value chain? What are the sort of the small entry barrier of opportunities in the fintech sector generally?
Okay, so I mean, in terms of using mobile money as a payment system, it's very well established in most of these countries to use it let's say, behind the scenes as a business is probably the easiest part, because if you have different employees in your company that need to send money to each other, let's say you have someone, as I mentioned, going out to the market to buy supplies or whatever they might need to be doing, sending money across distances, that's what mobile money is made for. That's the purpose of it. When it comes to using it as a payments mechanism for your customers, then different countries are at different stages. And again, I've mentioned Ghana, where the government just came out with an incredible statistic that where they monitored the transactions from last year, 2015, and found that they had already reached over 35 billion Ghanaian cedis, which is around about $10 million US, transacted through these systems. And so yeah, in a country like Ghana, in a country like to a certain degree Cote d'Ivoire, you've got a lot of customers already using these services. Some of the countries are a little bit, it will take some time for customers to continue, the customer base to continue growing, but we're already seeing that. As I mentioned, West Africa in general is the fastest growing region when it comes to mobile money transactions and customer numbers.
Mm-hmm. So, thank you very much.
Yeah,
thank you very much, Alex.
You're welcome. You're very welcome, Bertrand. I didn't put my contact information on this slide, but if you feel free to hand it out.
Let me. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. So if anyone wants to contact you, just get in touch with me, and I will put you in touch with Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.